Well, good evening, everyone. Glad that everybody's here tonight. I'd like to welcome everybody that's online. Tonight, I'm going to open up with, sorry, it took me just a minute. I had a picture that I forgot about putting in, and if I didn't resync it back to my iPad, I wouldn't have been able to show it. So, and we'll see it at the end. I'm going to start off with reading our announcements. Tomorrow night, they're going to have the trunk or treat at the bowling alley. It's going to be 8 to 6 at Fireside Lanes. And Brother Allen said that he had already checked with them and everything's good. So, no, 6 to 8, sorry. 6 to 8, sorry. 6 o'clock, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Sorry. Yeah. And it's a Bible theme trunk or treat. Saturday is the ladies' Bible study, and I think it's the last lesson at 10 a.m., lesson number 5. Okay. November the 6th, which I think is next Wednesday, the youth will be making fried apple pies and taking them to the area nursing homes from 6 to 8. November the 9th, we have the ladies' Bible study. We'll be watching the movie, The War Room, here at the church at 10 a.m. And you needed a head count, didn't you? If you could, please just let Laura know if you plan on coming. That way she'll be more prepared for the treats and stuff. November the 9th is the All Hands on Deck at Christian Acres with Gary Johnson and Tim Cole. It's a one-day event focused on strengthening churches, and registration begins at 8:30. November the 16th is the church Thanksgiving dinner at 4 p.m., and the food sign-up sheet is on the connection desk. November the 23rd is the baby shower honoring Alexa and Aaron Daugherty at 1 p.m., and they're registered at babieslist.com. December the 14th is the trip to the Arlington National Cemetery to place wreaths for the veterans. December the 18th through the 20th is the Feed the Families event. We'll be here at the church. Those will be, I think, on the 18th, they'll be purchasing the gifts, and the 19th, they'll be wrapping the gifts, and then on the 20th, they'll be giving the gifts out, or the boxes of food. And then TCTC, is it when is it, the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th? It's the second weekend of the 10th, 11th, and 12th for TCTC. That's the Tennessee Teen Convention in Gatlinburg. If anybody wants to go, I know Connie's went once or twice, go twice. It's a lot of fun, but it's a very, sometimes it's exhausting, everything that's going on, but you're on the go from Friday evening until you leave Sunday about 2 o'clock. You are on the go, walking, you're in sessions, it's an awesome thing, especially for the kids. They really, really enjoy it. But we need to start, they've got the pre-registration ongoing now. And then February the 7th, Tim Tebow Foundation, The Night to Shine. And that's another very, very awesome thing. I had the privilege of being there last year and welcoming the people when they were coming in. You could see in their eyes the excitement. Some of them, they couldn't stand still. I had to hold them so that the person in front would have time to go through the door. They would get out and they would be ready to go in. It was an awesome event. If anybody can be there, do anything to help with that event, it is one of the greatest events that I've helped through the church. It was very, very humbling, for sure. Do we have any other announcements that anybody knows of? Okay, we're going to start off our song service with 147, I Stand Amazed. And we'll sing all four verses of I Stand Amazed. Okay, our second song is going to be 475, Glory to His Name. And we're going to sing all three of these. Glory to His name, all three. Amen. That singing is wonderful tonight. For our prayer song, we're going to sing As the Deer. And if anybody has any additions to the prayer list, pass them to the inside aisle, and Brother Larry will collect them and bring them up. And it's got 2 verses, so we're going to sing them both. Okay, our invitation song is going to be 945. 945, Kneel at the Cross. Okay, in the way of announcements, the family of Sam Orn, he passed away yesterday. Sam and Laura Van Dyke, upcoming doctor's appointments and new medicines. Leona Stiltner had a hip replacement. Gracie Prophet, she's from Lebanon. She's only 15, and she's got multiple health issues. It's one of my coworkers' daughter's best friend, and they've transferred her to a specialty hospital, but I'm not sure what hospital it was. The family of Andrea Owens. Corbin King has pneumonia and the flu. And I'm going to say this one to last because it's a praise. Joe Tatum is 97 and he's in hospice care, so we need to remember him. Dre Hickman's grandfather has colon cancer. Mr. Trivett's family. I haven't talked to Emily. Is she feeling any better? And my wife is gone. The last time I talked to her, she was feeling some better. So she had a little throat issue over the weekend. So the last time I talked to her, she was feeling better. Carolyn Mullins' family. She passed away last Friday. That's Sister Rhonda Niece's aunt. Pray for William Stiltner. That's Sister Ada's son. He's had back issues, back problems. Mike and Edie Dales traveling to UVA. I seen that Mike had posted that they made it fine. So, and then McKinley Dales and her crew. I think the way Arlene said it Sunday was that they were doing a mission. They were flying to Europe or Asia for the time, and that time that they flew went to their certification. And once they did that wherever they went to and back, that they were fully certified. The family of Carol Mullins. Dave Van Dyke had a knee replacement. Janelle Kenner and Sister Ada. I'm glad you're here tonight, feeling some better. Wasn't feeling well Sunday. Michaela Looney lost her grandfather. Kenny Miller. Kiffany Dales and Crew Dales. And Kiffany's mom and dad. We sure need to remember all them. Wayne and Janice Cook. Oh, yes, that is. Yep, having health issues. Johnny Lee has cancer. He's a member of the Big Rock Church of Christ. Richard Lee has cancer. He's a member of the Big Rock Church of Christ. Richard Lester, open heart surgery, and he's a member of the Lebanon Church of Christ. Donna Robinson has COVID, and Betty Rose has COVID. Donna Buckles. Susan Dotson's having tests. Wanda Delp, she's having heart problems. Rebecca Farmer also has COVID. Sue Pruitt has health issues. Jimmy Stacy also has health issues, and the family of Aaron Kearns. The family of Martha Newman. And my sister-in-law, Tammy Witt, she's doing a lot better. I talked to my brother last night, and he said that she is still doing remarkably well with her knee surgery that she had last Thursday. And I think she goes back this Thursday for a follow-up. Oh, is your MRI? We need to remember Chris, she's got an MRI on Thursday. I didn't know when they got it scheduled. And we have a praise, Tara Brewster. She was baptized yesterday in the Clinch River, which was Tuesday. Brother Allen sent that out. I'm not sure exactly who she is, but she was baptized, so the Lord does, and the Lord was happy. The angels were singing. Let's give the Lord a hand. The family of John Ball. Yeah. I don't know if I've seen it in there or not, honey. But the family of John Ball, we need to remember him. Yeah. He come here, Brother Allen, he was over there for a period of time, and Brother Allen went to see him when he started getting his diagnosis, and they were pretty grim, and he finally, yeah. He, he was, we know he was saved, and we know he went to heaven, so. Friday, Doug Stacy, Friday? Okay. Having his back surgery Friday. Okay, any others? Okay. Okay, so that was Susan Dotson. I'll just repeat it. She had a spot on her lung, but they don't think it's going to, they're keeping a check on it. It's not bad enough to do anything right now. They'll keep a check on it. Anyone else? Suzanne Bart. Bart. Okay. We need to remember Suzanne Barton. She's going through cancer treatments. Yes, Jacob Kenner. Okay. Okay. Okay, so Jacob Kenner broke his foot. Okay, we need to remember him. Anyone else? And I don't see anything on Facebook. So, Brother Josh, you give a prayer for our prayer list tonight, please, sir?
Most kind gracious Heavenly Father, thank you so much for the love and mercy and grace that you bestow upon us each and every day, Lord. Lord, as we listen to the prayer list, Lord, we were talking earlier, there's been so much sickness, so much death, Lord, but we know that you are the mighty ruler, the mighty physician, and it's all in your plan. Lord, we just love your name at your feet. You do it. And it's your plan. See, Lord, we thank you and love you for the opportunity to come to you in all of our troubles and trials, Lord. We thank you so much for listening to us. Lord, just go with Brother Gene this evening as he delivers the message, Lord, that is one here that's outside of Christ today. Lord, I pray that today that we say, accept you before church today, never too late. Lord, we thank you for giving us a word we fall short. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen. Thank you, brother. Okay, it has been a few minutes since we met. And we have tonight's service, and next Wednesday night we'll finish this up. We'll be book 24 will be next Sunday, or next Wednesday. Tonight they did the books from, or the chapters from 12 to 23 are Joshua and everyone dividing up the land and trying to separate it to all of the Israelites. So I'm gonna do a little recap since it's been just a little bit since we met. But just Brother Josh did a great job last Wednesday night, and it was on his heart that he needed to do that. And I thought he did a wonderful job, and that's something we need to do is do our civic duty, and that's part of our civic duty. And we just need to let our heart guide us. And if you do your civic duty and you let your heart guide you, I mean, you know, my conscience will be clear. So it's just something that we need to do. We can't sit back and let some things maybe change and then we don't have a voice for it. But if you go out and do your civic duty, then I always said if you do your civic duty, you have the right to complain. But if you don't do your civic duty and you're not participating, I don't know that you really have a leg to stand on as far as complaining. but we'll let that go. It's just really good. You need to honor the people that has went through and sacrificed so much to give us the right to do that. Okay, I'm going to do a little catch up on the books up till now. When we first started, Moses had passed away, and he passed the leadership to Joshua. And we're going to find out tonight why the Lord punished the Israelites so much that he made them wander around for 40 years. In the first 5 books, it opens with the people of Israel in the plains of the Moab, east of the Jordan River, and they're preparing spiritually and morally and physically to conquest the land. And the Israelites are facing various peoples in the western side of the Jordan who make up a formidable force that they have to overcome. Yet God was with the Israelites and promised the land to them. So the primary is to fulfill the promise that Jesus had gave them or made to them. In chapters 6 through 12, the army, had went through and did the battles, and we seen one time when they stumbled, when they didn't involve the Lord in their decisions and their planning, they stumbled and they got beat. They wasn't victorious over that one city, which was Achan. And then once they figured out, that they'd got too prideful and really too big for their britches, really, what my grandmother would say, they went back and they involved the Lord, and what happened? They conquered them too. And their biggest conquest was Jericho, because it was the most fortified city that they had to try to overtake. But after they did what the Lord told them to do, they obeyed Him. They showed courage, and they obeyed Him to the T. Well, when they walked around the walls, and when they all screamed, the walls fell down. So he ended up he owned up to his side of the bargain, and then they ended up with their side of the bargain. So that's what faith. If you have faith and you're courageous, and you'll see that all through this book of Joshua. That's what the Lord is asking, to be faith and courageous. And to me, courageous means that you step outside of your comfort zone sometimes to show people that the Lord is with you and that what He says will happen. It may not happen today, it may not happen tomorrow, but it will happen. So we're about caught up with up to 12, chapter 12. But chapter 12 was a real short little chapter. All it was it was going over the names of all the kings that Joshua had slain through his conquest for the Promised Land. So we're going to start off in Joshua 13, and it's talking about the boundaries and how they're going to start to divide up the land and give the correct portion to each tribe. The land was now empty, waiting on Israel to possess it. But for a while, they were content to stay together and live off the countryside around them. Finally, God spoke to Joshua and prodded him to occupy the whole land. And if you look at this and you see that these people, what they went through, and all the victories and the stumbling blocks that they went through and how close they probably were, it was probably pretty hard to start splitting up and going different directions and different ways. The first task was to determine the portion for each tribe. The high council, including Joshua, the priests, the leaders of all the tribes, sat down to distribute the land west of the Jordan in a fair manner. The land east of the Jordan had already been given to Gad and Reuben and half of Manasseh. 9.5 tribes still needed a place to settle. After dividing the western land into portions and casting lots to determine the portion of each tribe. After finishing the last campaign in the north, Joshua had returned to Gilgal and made it his headquarters. Soon the nation gathered and sought his direction concerning the work that was remaining. Among them was a Judah named Caleb, who had gained his prominence 40 years before Joshua rose to leadership. Back then, the leader was Moses, who sent 12 men to spy in Canaan, where they saw men 9 foot to 10 foot tall. No wonder they reported back to the nation. And this is in Numbers 13:33. And there we saw the giants, the sons of Achan, which come from giants, and where in our own sight was grasshoppers. And so we were there. We were not there in their sight. So they had 12 spies that went to spy on Canaan. 10 spies advised the nation that the Canaanites were too strong for Israel. There were 2 that disagreed. Do you know who the 2 would be? One of them was Joshua. The other one was Caleb. They urged the nation to invade the land without delay, but the nation heeded to the 10 that refused to move forward. They rejected the Lord's direction that was given through Moses. So now we see why they wandered around for 40 years. In anger, the Lord condemned the nation for 40 years of wandering in the wilderness until all the adults that refused to enter the land had died off. But because Joshua and Caleb had given their nation good advice based on faith and courage, there's faith and courage again, the Lord rewarded each one of them with a long life. Neither perished during the 40 years. In fact, 45 years later, when Caleb came to Joshua at Gilgal, he reported that he had not aged at all. And since serving as a spy, he was now 85 years old, yet he could still fight like a man in his 40s. We see that Caleb's experience and how God rewarded his faithful servant. Caleb took the stand for God against an angry mob. And as a result, he had to wander through the wilderness with his countrymen and share their hardship for the next 40 years before he could gain his own inheritance. Yet the Lord preserved him, preserved his strength, so that he would not suffer no loss. Even as an older man, he could still win an inheritance by his own sword, an inheritance equal to what we would have what he would have had won as a younger man. Now this is toward us. Also with us, God does not allow us to suffer any real losses if we serve Him. We may have to endure trials. We may have to wait for the day of blessing. But the day of blessing will come. And everything we sacrifice for the Lord will be repaid many times over. Not only was Caleb's body stronger than ever, so was his faith. Years earlier, he was sure that no enemy could stop Israel. Now, after entering the land, he was sure that no enemy could stop him, a captain of Israel. He asked Joshua for permission to attack the giants and take possession of their city in Hebron, a fenced city in the mountains. These were the same giants who in the day past had so intimidated the nation that they refused to obey God's order to invade the land. One of the two spies insisted the giants could be defeated and that was Caleb, the very man who later proved his prophecy to be true. Caleb wanted the hardest challenge of all, yet he desired to do it. He wasn't trying to do a great deed of vanity for himself. He was just that confident in the Lord and what the Lord had told him. And we see that in Joshua 14:12, I'm sorry. Now therefore, give me this mountain, whereof the Lord spake in that day. For those heardest in that day how the Achims were there, and that the cities were great and fenced. If so be the Lord will be with me, then I shall be able to drive them out, as the Lord said. So what happened when Joshua granted Caleb his request? He gave him Hebron as an inheritance and sent him off to meet the giants in the battle. When Caleb climbed to the city, he found it defended by 3 sons, Achan, Shishah, Achman, and Talmah. Together they were families and supporters, and he drove all them out and made himself the master of the city. There's a little bit of, it's not confusion, but there's, on these accounts, because we're talking about the giants here in 14, but we also talked about them in 11 when they said that they went there and they scattered. But these were dual accounts, and it says, the commentator said earlier in the book of Joshua, he read about Israel's war against Achan, leading to their expulsion from Hebron and other cities and their total annihilation of the mountainous region. Then in chapter 14, the passage is now telling us that Caleb gained his inheritance. We read it again about the giants being overcome. Some critics claim that this repetition amounts to a contradiction, but the conservative scholars offer a simpler explanation. The 2 accounts were merely 2 summaries of the same campaign. The book of Joshua includes both because it helps furnish the full story. The account in chapter 11 concludes the story of Israel's conquest of the whole land, whereas the account in chapter 14 starts the story of how the land was divided. So it wasn't 2 different times. It was the same time, but they just were talking about it in chapter 14. In chapter 11, they did not say that Caleb led the fighting force that conquered Achan. But in chapter 14, they did. So it's trying to connect everything because of Caleb and Joshua's connection when they were spies earlier 40 years ago, or 40 years before. One of the best portions of land went to the tribe of Judah. They received almost the entire hill country west of the Dead Sea. Their borders ran all the way to the Mediterranean in the west and the wilderness in the south. Soon after possessing Hebron, Caleb went to another city nearby, which was included in his inheritance. He promised that he would give his daughter's hand in marriage to any young man who could take the city. So his nephew stepped forward and led the assault. His courage won him not only the city, but also a wife, his cousin. Being married to Caleb's daughter proved to be a great boon to his nephew. Her father viewed her in such tender regard that he could hardly refuse anything she wanted. She prodded her husband to ask for more land. And evidently, his father-in-law was happy to give it to them, for there was no less inclined than he just gave them more land. But what do you do when when you have a spoiled child. Is enough enough? Enough is never enough. So she goes back to her husband, and she tells him to go, or no, she goes to her father, Caleb, I'm sorry. She goes to her father, Caleb. She's riding on a donkey. And she gets there and dismounts and is talking to her father. And her father wants her to go on another quest with him. And she did. So when they got there, she asked for more. She wanted springs. She wanted water. So Caleb couldn't just give her one spring. He gave her two springs. One was higher in the mountains, and then the one that was lower. So, you know, once you have and I'm probably guilty of it also, I have a daughter. And if I could give her a spring, I would give her a spring. If I could give her two, I'd give her two. So it's just the nature of being a father and a daughter. And there's some modern Calebs in the history of the Christian service. There have been Calebs, the men that are rarely dedicated to God's priorities. And they usually live a long, useful, productive life, marked with great victories after they have outlived most of the men of their generation. One of those men is John Wesley. He's remembered to be the founder and chief of all churches known as the Methodist. Was actually a far larger figure. He was one of the preachers in the 18th century who helped spark the enormous, far-reaching revival of the biblical Christianity known as the Great Awakening. This whole life, after his conversion, was dedicated to ministry. While founding and building churches in England, he rode 250,000 miles, mostly on horseback, and preached 40,000 sermons, generally 2 or 3 per day. He continued his superhuman effort until he was 86 years old. I could not imagine driving 250,000 miles, and I could not imagine riding 250,000 miles. But that man, he gave his entire life to the Lord. After his body weakness finally came upon him and he was forced to retire, he died at the age of 87. So he only lived 1 year after he retired. God strengthened his body throughout many of the early decades because he was a warrior willing to engage the giants of unbelief and the corruption that stood all around him in today's society, or their society then in England. Largely through him, God brought life to countless and thousands of souls. There was another gentleman that they consider another Caleb. He was a famous man who could accomplish great feats through prayer and faith. And I know Brother Allen had just talked about this man last week or week before last, George Mueller. He was known for starting orphanages. While he was fairly still a young man, he acquired a great burden to champion the cause of neglected orphans, whom he saw roaming the streets in great numbers. Step by step, he pursued his work of building an orphanage, relying on funds that the Lord gave him through prayer. And God alone. He never made a public appeal for money. Instead, he limited his appeal to God alone. And God never left him wanting. Mueller started one orphanage, gradually added children. Then he embarked on an expansion of his facilities until at last he possessed a large complex of buildings sufficient to provide housing and schooling for about 2,000 children. In the course of his lifetime, over 10,000 orphans lived under his care. Also, he established 117 schools that furnished a Christian education to about 120,000 children. All this was accomplished by prayer and faith. Mueller testified that he never failed to gain access to the throne room of God. He knew where he was going. The reason for the power of his prayers is, this is what he said, is that serving as a spokesman for so many helpless children, he always touched the heart of God, who is, above all, the God of love and mercy. But Mueller was not only a prayer warrior like Daniel, he also was a giant slayer like Caleb. At the age of 70, he ceased from active administration work of his orphanages and undertook a worldwide evangelism. Now, he was 70 years old, and he embarked on a worldwide evangelism. The next 17 years, he traveled more than 200,000 miles to preach the gospel in many countries. The difficulties of travel before the jet age did not stop him. Only when he was 87 did he finally return home. Yet he did not retire exactly, but he kept busy in God's work until suddenly God took him at the age of 92. And this is the picture that I wanted to. That's him. A picture of Mueller during his later years is a marvelous window into a man's soul. Never have I seen a clearer picture of kindness, aglow with a sincerity that would sustain winning the confidence of a child. No wonder he was such a mighty doer of great deeds in God's kingdom of love. Centuries before, when the patriarch Jacob laid on his deathbed, he gave a double inheritance to his son Joseph, who was also then an Egyptian prime minister. He was rewarding Joseph for bringing his family into Egypt during the time of famine and saving them from starvation. Ever afterwards, the two sons, Joseph, Ephraim, and Manasseh, were counted as sons of Jacob. When the council divided the land in Canaan, they gave full portion to Ephraim and one to Manasseh, as each of them were a whole tribe. Ephraim's allotment appears in verses 5 through 10. I didn't put that in there, I apologize. But they appear in verses 5 through 10 of chapter 17. Manasseh's allotment is in chapter 17, verses 1 through 11. Yet notice what it says in conclusion of the passage. I've got it written down here. Instead of occupying all the assigned territory, Ephraim could not evict the same Canaanites who lived in the lowlands. And I have that one, Joshua 16:10. And they drave not out the Canaanites that dwell in Gezer, but the Canaanites dwell among them, Ephraimites, until this day, and served under tribute. Although Joshua had earlier vanquished the kings in the region and exterminated all the Canaanites who failed to escape the sweep of his armies, some of the enemy evidently managed to flee into the Philistine territory. Then, after Israel's retreat into places of the encampment, a large number of Canaanites returned to their homes. There they settled, and perhaps their material assistance by the military of the Philistines for a long years afterwards, they were a continual thorn in Israel's side. And then we're up to verse 21. The high council of the tribes gave no portion of land to the Levites. Now listen to these. This was I didn't know this until I started doing this study. But the Levites held a special place in God's heart. The high council of the tribes gave no portion of land to the Levites. Instead, he gave them cities, and they were scattered out in the whole land. God had set aside the Levites to be his own special servants. They assisted in the service at the tabernacle, and they taught the people about the law of God. Therefore, God wanted the Levites to live amongst all the tribes. So he dispersed them out into the whole land so that he had someone there teaching them the law of the God. The passage of Israel from a state of war into the state of peace is a picture of the church entering its eternal home. Thus, the custom of equating the promised land to heaven's touches to the real truth. So what they're saying is, they're saying that once Joshua was done conquering everything, the promised land to them was almost like heaven. It won't be like heaven, but they symbolized like heaven. It was no longer, the Israelites were no longer engaged in war. Then it pictured the Christian life. But as soon as the tribes won their secure peace, the quiet happiness and the possible for Israel to foretaste of heaven. So once if you think about it, how many years did they go through? They wandered around for 40 years, and then after that, when Joshua took over, they fought the entire time. I don't know if they had any restful peace to be able to be in one place and have such a peace. What time they were trying to acquire their promise. Our land of promise, our land, yours and mine, of eternity will be far better than Israel in Canaan, which Canaan is a rugged place where primitive people could gain no more than a meager living by modern standards. But in eternity, Christians will dwell with God in a beautiful world, newly created without sin or suffering or corruption of any kind. We too will inherit dwellings. See, like we talked about, the Lord didn't want Joshua to burn down all the cities because he wanted the cities to be there, some of them, so that the Israelites would have a place to go, that they didn't have to build, that they didn't have to toil the ground. The vineyards were there. The hillsides were full of milk and honey. The animals were there. All they had to do was go in and they were content. That's what it's sort of symbolizing the way heaven will be. Will we get there? Because God has built us a place. He has built many mansions for us. So when we get there, we're not going to have to do anything. We're not going to have to go in and build where we're going to be living. It's already prepared. How many of us can obtain this promise and of heaven? It's a free gift. That's the best way I can describe it. It's there. All you have to do is have faith and courage and step out and let the Lord guide your life. And you will have eternity with Him in a place that we have no idea what it looks like. We can only imagine. But my imagination can't imagine what it is, because it's the splendor and the beauty will be amazing. But it's hard to get some people, which I know you guys understand, but when you talk to somebody that's not been to church or not heard the word, and you tell them that they can get that by, basically, it's free. All they have to do is step out in the aisle, come down here, confess, turn their life around, be baptized. All that can happen in 15 minutes, and they can have eternity in heaven. My mind can't understand why there's not more people doing that. Because if you don't do that, you're going to have eternity in hell. And you will be tormented forever. And I can't, my mind is a feeble mind. I can't wrap my mind around why somebody would let a free gift of eternal life go by without giving their life to the Lord, their heart to the Lord, and sit there and laugh about it and turn around and live eternity in hell. That the two choices, there's it's like, would you rather have $1 million or would you rather have $100? You have $1 million in the end of your life, or you can have $100 now. How many people is going to grab the $100 and run? I mean, it's not worth it. You need to work. You need to have faith. You need to have courage. You need to understand what is out there. And what, if you can't, I don't know how to get people to understand. I try to talk to people, and a lot of them will, they just look at you like you're crazy. But it's in the book. The book doesn't lie. If the book says it, it's going to happen. It may not happen in my lifetime. It may not happen in my children's lifetime. It will happen. And when it happens, there's going to be a lot of people that's going to be, sorry, because they think that the Lord, and I've heard people say this, they think that the Lord is a forgiving God. And He is, because what He done forgive all of us for our sins. But they think that when they get there, He's going to go, oh, okay, well, come on. That's not going to happen. He says it in the book. I mean, if you do not know Him and you are not living the life for Him, He will turn you away and you will go to hell and you will suffer for eternity. I don't know any other way to say it. But it's, I don't know. And even in this commentary, it says we obtain it as a free gift of God. I mean, how many people likes gifts anyway? Everybody likes getting a gift. But when you get a free gift from God, I mean, wouldn't that be something special? And there's nothing worth having that He will, we will pour, all of us must believe in Jesus. And the God will pour out His goodness upon us for all eternity. There is nothing worth having that He will deny us. So that's what I'm saying. I don't think our minds can understand what He will do for us when we get there. I mean, I just don't think we can comprehend what He has. Because I don't understand a lot of things that He's already done. How did He build the earth? How did He speak all this stuff into the happening? I mean, He sat there and He spoke, then the earth, and then there was light. I mean, I can't understand how He did that. So wonder what He's going to have for us in heaven. I mean, it's going to be something. But I just wish there was a lot more people that would be going with us. That's for sure. And I'm going to leave you with that right now, and we're going to, I don't know where my piano player is. But I'm going to leave you with that tonight. Next Wednesday, we will be in chapter 24. And that will be thank you. That will be our last book of Joshua. It will, Lord willing, I will be here next Wednesday. We will finish up our book, and then we'll try to see what we might get into again, or what we might take a little break from a series and just have some Bible lessons, and then we might just jump right into another book. Myself, I have learned so much from Joshua, I'm telling you, that I didn't know before, because I spent extra time reading the book and studying the book. That's what we have to do, because you can learn so much, and you can make connections from today's world into His world by reading the book. You can read a passage and you can say, well, that happened to me yesterday. Or you can read something else and you can say, well, I need to do better because that's what I did yesterday and I shouldn't do that. So, well, we will stand and sing as the deer. No, I'm sorry, kneel at the cross. Kneel at the cross. I've already got it up there. We will stand and sing verses 1 and 3. Kneel at the cross. Christ will meet you there. He intercedes for you. Lift up your voice, leave every care, and live life anew. Kneel at the cross, leave every care. Kneel at the cross, Jesus will meet you there. Kneel at the cross. Give your idols up, look unto Him